Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! My fiancé and I have been staying with my future mother-in-law for what felt like an eternity. But in reality, it had only been a couple of weeks. At first, everything seemed fine. She was on her best behavior, playing the perfect host, but it didn't take long for her true colors to show. It started with little things. A snippy comment here, a disapproving look there, but soon it escalated into full-blown criticism of everything we did. Nothing was good enough for her. The way we made the bed, how we folded the laundry, even the way we breathed seemed to annoy her. My fiancé and I love cooking. It's our hobby and we're pretty good at it, if I do say so myself. We thought we'd do something nice for her and make her favorite dish. The same one we'd made for her when she visited us a few months ago. She had raved about it then, but this time it was a completely different story. Here you go. We made your favorite dish, just like last time. Mother-in-law, what's this supposed to be? My fiancé tells her, it's the same dish you loved when you visited us, remember? It looks different, and it smells weird. I assure you we followed the exact same recipe. Well, it doesn't taste right. I think I'll just order something for myself. And just like that, she dismissed our efforts and ordered takeout. I was fuming, but my fiancé just squeezed my hand under the table, silently telling me to let it go. The next day, she came up with a brilliant idea. Since she was too busy to cook, despite spending most of her time criticizing us, we should make the next meal. But of course, it had to be done her way. I'll supervise you making the goulash. It's time you learn how to cook a proper meal. I bit my tongue to stop myself from reminding her that we were perfectly capable cooks. Instead, I nodded and headed to the kitchen. What followed was the most frustrating cooking experience in my life. She hovered over me, micromanaging every little detail. No, you're cutting the onions all wrong. They need to be diced finer. I tell her, I thought you were too busy to cook. I'm not cooking, I'm teaching you how to cook properly. As she continued to bark orders, I realized that her version of goulash was unlike anything I'd ever heard of. The ingredients and methods she insisted on were bizarre, to say the least. Now add this jar of Big Lard. It gives the dish a richer flavor. When I opened the jar, the smell that hit me was nauseating. It was clearly rancid. But at this point, I was beyond caring. If she wanted rancid lard in her goulash, who was I to argue? Are you sure about this? It smells a bit off. Are you questioning my cooking expertise? Just add it in. I shrugged and dumped the entire contents of the jar into the pot. The smell was overwhelming, but I continued stirring as instructed. As soon as she left the kitchen, I turned to my fiancé, who had been watching the whole ordeal with a mix of horror and amusement. I say, this is going to be inedible. I know, but maybe this will teach her a lesson. We exchanged the knowing look and decided to put our plan into action. Hey, why don't we go out for lunch? I'm craving some pizza. That sounds great. Mom, we're heading out for a bit. The goulash needs to simmer for a while anyway. Fine, but don't be too long. And don't forget to stir it every 15 minutes. We promised we wouldn't forget and quickly made our escape. As soon as we were in the car, we burst into laughter. I can't believe she made you put that rancid lard in there, my fiancé tells me. I know, this is going to be a disaster. We enjoyed a leisurely lunch at a nearby restaurant, taking our time and savoring every bite of food that wasn't tainted with rancid lard. When we finally returned home, the smell that greeted us was indescribable. What have you done to my kitchen? She was standing in the doorway, her face a mixture of disgust and rage. What do you mean? I followed your instructions exactly. This is inedible. What did you put in it? Only what you told me to. You were there the whole time, remember? I walked over to the pot and took a spoonful, immediately regretting my decision as a foul taste filled my mouth. You're right, it does taste weird. I guess I don't know how to cook a proper goulash after all. Her face turned an interesting shade of red as she realized the predicament she was in. She couldn't criticize a dish without admitting that her own instructions were flawed. Fiancé says, maybe we should order takeout again? No, I mean, I'm sure it's not that bad. She took a hesitant bite and immediately spat it out. This is disgusting. How could you ruin a perfectly good goulash? I'm sorry, but I followed your recipe to the letter, including that special ingredient you insisted on. I pointed to the empty jar of rancid lard on the counter. Her eyes widened as realization dawned on her. That? That was supposed to be thrown out weeks ago. Then why was it still in the pantry? I must have forgotten. The silence that followed was deafening. We all stared at the pot of ruined goulash, the embodiment of her misguided attempt to prove her superiority. Well, I guess we all learned something today. Maybe it's best if we stick to our own recipes from now on. I suppose you're right. And while I wouldn't say we became best friends, at least we found a way to coexist without wanting to strangle each other over a pot of goulash. Hey everyone, I've got a story for you about my insufferable neighbor, who we will call Karen. I've been dealing with her for years, and let me tell you, she's a piece of work. But this time, she took things way too far. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood in the US, and for the most part, it's a pretty peaceful place. That was until Karen moved in next door a few years ago. From the moment she arrived, it was clear she had a bone to pick with everyone. She'd complain about the smallest things, like kids playing too loudly or someone parking too close to her driveway. But none of that compared to what she did to me. One day I had to go out of town for a work trip. I parked my car in my driveway, as usual, locked it up, and thought nothing of it. Little did I know Karen was plotting something heinous behind my back. While I was away, she decided to tow my car from my own driveway. She had one of her idiot cousins who worked at a scrapyard help her out. They towed my car, crushed it into a mangled heap of metal, and sent me pictures of it with a bunch of nasty messages. Enjoy your new car, loser. Hope you didn't need it for anything important. LOL. When I saw those pictures, I was furious. My car was a sentimental piece, something I'd saved up for years to buy, and now it was just a pile of scrap metal. But Karen wasn't just content with ruining my car, no. She wanted to rub it in my face. Bet you're crying right now, huh? Serves you right for being such a terrible neighbor. I couldn't believe what I was reading. She was laughing at me, mocking me for something so cruel. I knew she had a plan, and it turned out she was planning to move out of the country to live with her daughter in Europe. She wasn't even from the US originally and was heading back to her home country. She must have thought that she'd never face any consequences for her actions because she was leaving for good. But karma has a funny way of working things out. Karen sent me those pictures while she was at the airport, waiting for her one-way flight out of the country. She thought she was scot-free. But God had other plans. A massive storm hit, and her flight was delayed for a few days. She had no choice but to return home. As soon as I got those messages, I reported her to the police. I showed them the pictures of my crushed car and all the hateful messages she sent me. They took it very seriously and promised to investigate. Fast forward a couple of days, Karen comes back home probably thinking she's just going to wait out the storm and then leave the country. But as soon as she steps out of the taxi, she is greeted by the flashing lights of a police car parked right in front of her house. The officers were waiting for her. Officer 1 says, "Are you Karen?" "Yes, what's going on?" "Ma'am, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of criminal damage to property. Please step out of the vehicle." "What? This is ridiculous. I didn't do anything." "Ma'am, we have evidence of you towing and destroying your neighbor's car. Please come with us." Karen started screaming and protesting, but it was no use. The officers handcuffed her and took her away. I watched from my window as she was driven off. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Karen tried to fight the charges, but with all the evidence against her, it was a losing battle. The police had her messages, the pictures, and even security footage from the scrapyard showing her and her cousin towing my car. "This is all a misunderstanding. I was just playing a prank." "Ma'am, destroying someone's property is not a prank. It's a serious crime." In the end, she was convicted and sentenced to prison. Not only that, but she was also ordered to pay restitution for the value of my car. The judge did not go easy on her at all. "Your actions were malicious and calculated. You showed no remorse and even mocked your victim. This court finds you guilty and sentences you to prison. You will also pay restitution for the damage you caused." "But I was leaving the country. I don't even live here anymore." "That is irrelevant. You committed a crime on US soil, and you will face the consequences here." Seeing Karen get what she deserved was incredibly satisfying. She had tormented me and my neighbors for years, always thinking she was above the law. But in the end, her arrogance and cruelty caught up with her. She had to stay in the country to serve her sentence and pay for the damage she caused. Life in the neighborhood has been much more peaceful since she left. No more constant complaints, no more petty arguments, and it's almost like a weight has been lifted off of everyone's shoulders. I even got a new car thanks to the restitution she was ordered to pay. As for Karen, I heard through the grapevine that she's struggling in prison. Turns out you can't just bully and harass people without facing some serious consequences. And she's finding out the hard way that karma is very real. So that's my story. It's a wild ride, but in the end, things turned out well for me. If you're ever dealing with an entitled neighbor like Karen, just remember, karma has a way of catching up with them eventually. And when it does, it's oh so sweet. So I recently found myself in a situation that would be perfect for this subreddit. Here is how it all started. A few months ago, I stumbled upon an Instagram contest offering a chance to win a high-end home security system. Given the rising crime rates in my area, I thought, why not? It's just a harmless contest. So I entered my details, including my phone number. Big mistake. At first, I got a call or two. I didn't think much of it, but soon it escalated. It started with calls every couple of hours. Then it became every hour, and sometimes even more frequently. I pick up and there will be silence on the other end before the call abruptly ended. This went on for days. I was getting calls at work, during meals, and even in the middle of the night. It was driving me insane. Blocking the numbers didn't help because they kept calling from different numbers. I was at my wit's end. One day I finally managed to get someone on the line. Hello? Hi, this is Company X. We'd like to talk to you about our home security systems. I've been getting calls every hour from your number, and it's really disruptive. Could you please remove my number from your list? Oh, I apologize for that. I'll make sure you're removed. I was relieved, thinking that was the end of it. But the calls didn't stop. If anything, they seemed to increase in frequency. Now I have some experience in sales. I've worked in both business-to-business and business-to-consumer sales, including stints in a call center. I generally don't mind talking to salespeople because I know how tough the job can be, but this was beyond acceptable. For those who aren't familiar with call center dialers, here's a quick rundown. The system calls you first, and if there is no agent available, it hangs up. This is to keep the agents as busy as possible, but it comes at the expense of the people on the call list. It's efficient for them, but incredibly annoying for us. After weeks of this harassment, I had enough. I decided to get revenge. I'm pretty good at finding information online, so I took to LinkedIn and started digging. I managed to compile a list of phone numbers for many other employees. This included the CEO, CFO, COO, VP of Sales, VP of Marketing, and pretty much everyone I could find in my country. I even included interns, HR, and legal staff. I opened a clean virtual machine, used a VPN, and created a fake Instagram profile. I then subscribed every single person on that list to the same Instagram contest. Here is a taste of their own medicine. Me smirking. Let's see how they like being bombarded with calls. Now let me paint you a picture of what I imagine happened at their office. Just imagine some sales agent calling and hanging up on the CEO of a global home security company multiple times a day. And not just the CEO, but also the VP of Sales, interns, HR, and everyone. A few weeks later, the calls to my number finally stopped. I did a bit of research and learned that you can block a range of phone numbers, and that seemed to do the trick. I could only imagine the frantic meetings and heated discussions happening at their office. Eventually, they must have figured out how to stop it, probably creating a blacklist to prevent it from happening again. They likely had no idea it was me behind the whole thing. Looking back, it was a bit pity, but they really left me no choice. At least now I can laugh about it and share it here with all of you guys. Yesterday was a weird day, and I was a tiny bit shaken. I'm not sure if I did my first malicious compliance or not, so tell me if it wasn't. There is my company and there is the other company, and both cooperate once in a while. In my company, I am one of two people who have a monthly ticket for trams and buses. The rest travel by cars. The other company is in the old city zone where only cars with an official permit can travel and park. So if my boss needs any person to go there, it is my coworker or me. 2 days ago, he asked me because I was around while the colleague was on a lunch break. I was to deliver some documents. It's faster than hiring a courier because a courier must take a package to the warehouse where it's registered and then goes out. So it could take a whole day if a courier picks it up late. And if my colleague or I go to the other company, it's only 45 to 60 minutes. The way my boss explained, I was to go to the other company and they set a time interval of 3 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. So I was to leave around 2 p.m. Okay, all clear. My boss wrote an email when I was leaving so they knew when I was to arrive. They confirmed and all was set. I was there just after 3 p.m. I was to leave the package, but no can do. Their lady manager was to check it and then notify my boss if some documents were missing. So where is she? I missed her by a whole 5 to 10 minutes. I was to wait for her because not one person in the other company knows which documents were in the package. But it's all good. She'll be back in 15 minutes, not to worry. And don't tell your boss. That part was weird. So I grabbed my phone, wrote a message, something like, "There is a misunderstanding," sending an email. Then a detailed email with a description, but not blaming the other company. There must be a misunderstanding because, and here I put what they told me. The timestamp was 3 and 3 minutes, so I was definitely not late. What was even more weird, my boss checked the reply from the lady manager and she confirmed. Not an employee, the lady in person. So I sat there, grabbed the book on my phone, all perfectly fine. Some 30 minutes later, my boss asked if I delivered the documents. No lady manager around. I asked and they weren't allowed to call her, but there is no need to notify my boss. They were sure she'd be here any minute. So I wrote another text. No lady manager around. Sending email. Added a detailed description including their statement. They weren't allowed. And kept waiting. The next 30 minutes, no lady boss. My boss called them. They pretty much repeated what they kept telling me. I added another email. "Boss, I listened to your conversation. They aren't happy. But I couldn't wait outside. They insisted I was not to wander around with the documents. I got it. Not a problem. Do what they suggest and notify me immediately." And I kept waiting. They wanted to get me mineral water. I declined. Wrote to my boss and got an email back. Close to 4:40, the lady manager barges in. Why wasn't I earlier as they decided? I grabbed my phone, read the timestamp, read the email with sick conditions, and she went reddish purple. She got the package and I can go. I'm sorry, I can't go. I was told repeatedly she was to check if documents aren't missing. She insists. I write a text to my boss. She doesn't want to check documents. Sending email. And I read the message. She was not happy, but at last decided to check the documents. I thanked her, waited for her email to my boss, and wrote another email immediately. I left only when my boss wrote back that she really confirmed all the documents were in the package. Later she contacted the owner and blamed us. So it was my luck that I wrote all the emails so religiously. When the owner called my boss, all furious, it was easy to deliver copies. My boss asked me today to his office and let me read the emails to/from the owner of the other company. There was a lawyer who explained that in normal circumstances I wouldn't be allowed to read it, but the lady manager insisted we did something wrong, especially me. And as it was also about me, I was to read this even if I wasn't the recipient. They also asked me to print the emails directly from my email account and screenshots from my mobile, plus write a detailed note from all of this, including timestamps from my emails, which I did. I don't know what it was, a weird power play, a way to discredit the other company. I don't even know if it was malicious compliance or not. Sorry. I don't think my boss or the lawyer will tell me more. Possibly if they try to sue, but why should they?
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.